good to be here in person. It's good to be here close to hear the music. It's good to be here being part of the system now, isn't it? Yeah? Sure. Okay. It's good to see eyes open, maybe. It's good to see babies dedicated. And that's my favorite. Doesn't take long to get the old teary eyes done it, family. Yeah, that's good stuff. You know, we've been talking for so long about ways of which we're supposed to grow our faith. And then you talk about so long for the whys that we do the church thing, right? And so we've been talking about these 7 elements of faith for, I guess, 15 years or so. Let me get rid of this thing. And but there's actually a method and a reason for all this madness. So the point of these 7 elements of faith, if you try to figure out why it is we're supposed to, how we grow our faith, what we do, how to grow our faith, what we need to do, how do we process the things that we're supposed to be so we can become the people God needs us to be. It just doesn't happen overnight. There's things that we have to go through and learn and develop ourselves. And so we always take these first 4 elements of ways in which we just start engaging with God, trying to figure out who in the world this God is, and just keep going and going and going. And you really start to figure out God probably, well, really never, because you keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. So you never reach a point where you say, you know what, I've got God all figured out. If you reach that point, then you're just another bumper sticker, right, that you don't want to read about yourself. And so it's really one of those processes that we keep going, and God keeps leading us deeper, and we just can't help but keep going the direction God needs us to go. So how we do that is we start that courtship with God by doing these first 4. We just learn how to worship correctly. We learn how to do worship in a way that makes sense to us. We learn more about who this God is through Scriptures, because Scripture can be very confusing. So you got to keep plugging away, keep plugging away, keep plugging away. And you got to find those people in your life that are going the same journey with you, so you can ask those questions and you can hear how they respond to it. And then you start to grow and deepen in your relationship with those people, and then you have creating a little community of faith, and then you learn how to pray. I think when we start off praying, we think we're supposed to talk all the time to God. I remember my first prayer vigil, I signed up for 30 minutes, and I was going, oh my gosh, what am I going to say for 30 minutes to God? So I lasted 30 seconds. And then I started looking for something to read or a little nap to take. But the best time you spend with God are the times that you don't say a word. You just be. And you just wait and hear what God has to say to you. And so when we learn those things, we grow deeper and deeper and deeper, then reach the point where you start to respond to God. And we respond by God by start discovering things that God placed within us, those special gifts. That when we start to tap into that with people who also tap into that, and you start doing some things around us that really affect other people's lives, that has a lasting impression on people, then you go, wow, this is pretty neat. And then you want to do it more and more, and then you create this ministry. Then you realize, I'm not a church member who sits on a pew. I'm a minister of Jesus Christ. I can touch and affect other people's lives the way God asked me to do and calls me to do and designed me to do. That's a wonderful feeling. And then you want to share that feeling with other people, because there's a lot of people you run across that say, man, I just can't get life. I don't understand it. Then we're able to say, well, let me tell you my story, because I was in the same way, because I had these barriers that put up in front of me that I couldn't reach God, but then I did things differently. It made all the difference in the world. It's a long journey, but we can get there. We can certainly get there. And then once we begin to share our story, then we start seeing needs, and then we become this resourceful people. We become generous people. We used to call that stewardship. That's a famous word we use in the church. What it really means, you need a tithe. So our giving to God was always like, oh, I'll put this money in the offering plate. I got to give 10% or I'll feel guilty for the rest of the week or whatever. But it's about being resourceful. It's about being a generous people. The most generous person we've ever known in this world was Jesus Christ. How much money did he have in his bank account? Less than any of us in this room. But he was the most generous person because he was so benevolent with his time and with who he was and what he did for people. And so we become this generous people. I think when you start thinking about where we need to be in our walk of life, in my mind, I think it's just simple to say, we're supposed to be a generous people. But you can't be a generous person if you have any type of fear within you, right? Last week, Dan introduced this little hierarchy thing. That was kind of a cue. Our needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it kind of makes sense within our Christian faith as well. Because if we think, what is the goal of every person of faith? The goal of every person of faith is self-actualization. And to me, what that means for us in our faith, that's when we have that aha moment. When we begin to step out in faith because we start to have all these things done for us, then we start to realize, oh my gosh, I've been created in the image of God. And I have the ability to be used the way that God needs me to be used. I have a purpose. I have a vision. I have gifts. And so then we begin to go, oh, wow, I could really begin to do things for God and do it with a lot of joy. And all of a sudden our lives begin to change, you know. The face changes. The attitude changes. You have an extra skip in your beat. You like to being around people. You're no longer slave to what other people say to you or say about you that we have a tendency to believe, because we're more interested in what God is doing for you and what God believes you to do. You start to realize, this is who I'm meant to be. And the only thing for people like many of us in this room where we haven't had those bottom two, or already had those bottom two needs met, is that the only barrier we have from being who God needs us to be and who we are is this thing we call fear. We're afraid. We're afraid that if I become generous, that someone's going to take advantage of me, or I won't have enough for myself, or it won't be fun, or it won't be this, or it won't be that, so we hold back. We don't want to get involved. We might get hurt. We might do all these other things. But once we get past that barrier and move that barrier and be what Christ needs us to be, then we reach self-actualization. But it doesn't stop there, because what ends up happening is then we begin to see our awareness begins to pick up around us. Because why is it important for us to be a people who are generous? Why is it significant that we become a generous people? Because that's how God works. God makes us generous and helps us rely on God so that we can in turn go find those whose barriers prevent them from being in the same place that we have been, that prevent us from being the people that God needs us to be. So we become the workers for God. We become the ones who remove these barriers and get them out of the way so it makes it possible for people to come. Last week, we talked about the greatest need of all: food, water, shelter, clothing, just sleep. And we see folks around us that suffer from these things, and we don't want to get involved. But there's a reason that God puts these in front of us, because we're the ones who speak for God. And so we have to help them overcome those needs. Today we're talking about another need that people have, and that's safety. Those are things we take for granted, isn't it? To be able to go to a home that you live in and not worry about being roughed up, not worried about being broken down, not worried about someone breaking in, not worried about being trampled upon or killed or hurt or maimed or whatever it might be, that you just sleep peaceful at night. So we have to have this safety, these needs around us. And I want to say this about this congregation. This congregation has done a tremendous job with these two bottom things, because there's a very good reason why Jesus did the things that he did and why we're called to do those same things, is because our responsibility as those who have self-actualization is to help people with all of these things so that they can begin the process of helping them be what God needs them to be. That is our responsibility. That's our mission. That's our purpose. And so that is why we're here. So today I'm going to introduce a couple ways that we deal with the safety needs of people who are in danger of their life. We started two ministries here. One is Freedom House, which is domestic violence shelter. And the other one is Crossroads Youth Ministry, which is a ministry that deals with at-risk youth. And we're going to hear some of the people that we've helped, and they're going to kind of share their story with you. So listen to these videos.
Wages will dance like kids on the moon.
Every 9 seconds, a woman is assaulted or beaten in the U.S. It's a crime that can affect anyone, regardless of race, age, nationality, social, or economic status. The clock doesn't stop. The violence has to. Every second is an opportunity for a second chance. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence has helped thousands of victims and survivors get their feet back on the ground. Thousands more still need help. Get involved. Take a stand to end the violence at ncadv.org/take a stand.
My name is Juanita Perez, and I work here at Freedom House. I'm a bilingual advocate. I work with domestic violence.
And I'm Debbie Buckman, and I am a client advocate here at Freedom House. We provide services such as a shelter. We have a shelter for battered women and their children, and we provide counseling. We provide case management, choosing life classes, which are like life skills classes. We also do case management with our clients and help them try to get connected to services in the community when they come see us. And we try to help them with a protective order or legal aid if they need legal services.
Okay, my name is Mary Lou Curry, and I am the Domestic Violence Programs Manager for Freedom House, and I have been with Freedom House for almost 19 years. 25 years ago, Ida Popke and Ruth Crawford decided that we needed to help women who were being abused. So they explained what they wanted to do to Danny, and of course, everybody knowing Danny, he said, okay, let me know what you want to do, and I'll get the support of the church, and y'all can do it. So that's how it started, and it started with volunteers only. The ladies were sheltered in private homes. The hotline was manned by people that they just passed the phone from one to the other, and they were all volunteers for about a year. And then a very small shelter in a residential area was obtained, and then they started having clients, and the hotline was actually in the shelter. It was a 3-bedroom. One bedroom was the hotline office. The other one was for our clients. And being a very small place, we had sometimes we had 12 and 15 people in there, which was, we came from a very humble beginning. The main barrier, I think, is probably embarrassment. For a long time, domestic violence was kind of in the closet. We've come a long ways, and it was probably in the 80s that the big push came, and that women started reaching out for help and knowing that there was help. But embarrassment is one thing, and financial reasons is another, children is another, and the fact that in a domestic violence situation, the women are not allowed to make decisions, so they get to the point that they can't make a decision. And if they do, they're afraid it's wrong.
My name's Melissa Bennett, and I have 2 kids. Kason is 11, Bree is 9. And then my grandparents were Ruth and Ted Hartness, and they go here, Grandma still goes here. We started dating, everything was fine at first as far as I was concerned. And the more time went on, the more of his true colors came out. And I think there's levels to, at least my story, where it started out, everything was good, and then it kind of came into the control aspect, where he started getting into my brain, basically, trying to make it so that he was the only person that mattered in my life by filling my brain, my head full of things. Like, he would isolate me from my friends and family. Like, I was not allowed to go hang out with friends, and if he ever found out I did, well, then that would be an episode where he would, hit me or choke me or pull me around by my hair so he could scream at me.
And it's not just physical violence that women and men are dealing with. It can be verbal abuse. It can be psychological abuse. It could be economic abuse, and that's a way that an abuser can keep, his partner or her partner, from getting away from them. And it's a way to control them using economic abuse. For example, not allowing them to get a job, or not allowing them to have transportation or a phone. That when we talk about domestic violence, it's about power and control. And so it's one person having power and control over another person.
When I was a kid, I would hear these stories, or like a teenager, and I'd be like, gosh, why don't those people leave? Why don't they get out of those situations? But when you're in it, you just don't. And it's a whole mess of things that is keeping you there. It's not just one thing. It's not just saying, okay, well, I'm just gonna leave and everything's gonna be okay and this person's gonna go away. You've got so many things going through your head, things that they have said, things that are going on in your life right now, things that might happen. It's like you can't deal with the what if, so you just stay. And you shouldn't, and you shouldn't, but you just don't feel like there's a way out. It's like, well, I'll just sacrifice myself to make sure everybody else is okay. Most people are just scared, they're ashamed, they just don't think there's a way out.
And when they get to this pain, they forget that they can lean on the Lord also, because the Lord will help them. But once they get with this pain, they put the Lord on the side because they're too busy, fighting and all these things that are happening with them, with the kids.
Freedom House needs to be more of a forefront, somewhere because there's so many people that I've talked to since this happened that don't even realize that it's there. And I feel like if people knew that there was a safe place they could go, where they could get away from whoever is doing this to them, they would do it. Because you don't want to be in that situation. You realize that you're in a bad situation. You just don't think you can go anywhere. So if they had somewhere that was safe, that they could go, that they knew that the person who is doing this could not get to them, I think that would make a huge difference. And
my name is Bunny. Am I supposed to say my real name? Or can I say Bunny?
You can just say Bunny.
Okay. I was a wild child, for sure. My parents were in the middle of a divorce. I was completely and utterly unsupervised. Mom did not pay attention nor care. I really kind of got in with a bad crowd, to be honest with you. Did a lot of inappropriate things, drugs, drinking.
Well, right now, Crossroads is under the umbrella of Freedom House. They weren't for a while, but they worked with kids. When it first started, it was a little different than what it is now, because it was strictly at-risk youth, which some of them had been incarcerated, some of them had babies, some of them were just really in bad trouble. But a lot of the issues that some of them, I won't say all of them, but some of them stem from domestic violence, that this is what they've seen. You just have to break the chain somewhere. And if you live in that your whole life, then that's what you're going to do the rest of your life. So unless you break the chain, and that's what we try to do.
I think a lot of the barriers that I had were probably myself. At that point, I don't know, I just didn't really care to try to be better. I didn't want to be, I just wanted to be loose, I suppose. And like I said, hanging out with the wrong crowd and the wrong people just kept me going down the wrong road. And I didn't have active parents who really were trying to lead me the other way. I was just kind of left to do as I pleased. So I didn't have guidance, I guess. That's what I needed, is I needed a guidance, and I didn't have it at that point. So I just kind of went with whatever.
But it was also founded with a volunteer from Central Christian, and she virtually went out in the highways and hedges and drug those people in. The church was very accommodating in supplying whatever needs they needed. Like I said, some of them had been in jail, and some of them were going back to jail, And some of them had children, and some of them had children while they were in Crossroads.
This place represents, I don't know, feelings of happiness and joy. This was like home. Like I said, I tried to walk in. I just wanted to I could come here whenever I wanted, and I would just walk in and hang out. I think I was in this house more as the mentor. I think I not necessarily aged out, but once I got to be 18 and 19, I wanted to mentor, and actually I really wanted to be a youth minister at that point. So I would be here with the kids all the time and just helping them with whatever. I would help teach with Sheila, and I don't know, it was just home, a steady place, a place I could just come and be happy and not have to worry about anything. And it was just my home that was steady.
It's more for not necessarily youth that are in trouble. Primarily it's with kids that are maybe a little socially deprived and have social issues, kids that are or have been bullied, kids that need some direction on boundaries and respect, not only for themselves but for others.
I wouldn't be here without Sheila and Pat and Danny and everybody else with Central Christian that helped guide me to where I needed to be. So if someone their age really is just struggling and needs that consistent love and guidance, Crossroads is definitely where they need to go. I'm so proud, okay? I wanted to be that kind of mom that my kids could go to the good church group, as we called them when I was in Crossroads instead of Crossroads, and I have achieved that. I am a person where my kids can go to they don't have to come to Crossroads. They are where they need to be. And so for kids who are struggling without parent guidance like I did, or without parents, I think this is where they need to be.
I don't know, I felt like if I came back and I had this child now and no husband, that people would be like, oh, they wouldn't really want me there, kind of thing. Like, I wouldn't be welcomed because I had made all of these mistakes. Kind of like what he said would happen. They're not going to want you because you deserve this, And so that kept me away for a long time. And yeah, and then Kason came and he's like, Mom, I really want to go to church. I want to see what it's all about. I want to learn about Jesus, and can we go? And I'm still kind of hesitant, like, oh yeah, totally, we'll get around to it. And then, hope that he didn't say anything again. But he kept coming back saying, nope, seriously, can we go? It's Sunday again. Why aren't we there? And so finally I was like, okay, oh my goodness, I'll talk to Grandma. We'll go with her. And so we did, and it just totally was not anything like I thought it would be. I mean, people that I knew from when I was a kid that are still going here would come up, and they were like, oh my goodness, how are you? It's so good to see you. Give you hugs, shake your hands. Grandma was she loved it. As soon as I asked her if we could come, she was like, yes, So it was great. And then as soon as that happened, I'm like, gosh, why didn't I come here sooner? Because it just felt so much better.
You don't see the success on it for 5 or 6 or 10 years even, but we do have clients who come in and even after they've been gone for maybe 5 or 6 years and tell us that they wouldn't be where they are today if it hadn't been for us. And those are the success stories that we really, really like to hear, and it is the reason we do what we do.
Bunny,
Yes.
we're proud of you.
Aw, thank you.
love you so much.
I love y'all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, brave kids. Bunny was 13 when we first got her. She was the first female in Crossroads. Now she lives right up the street, has great kids, wonderful husband. They come and participate and do some things here, and it's really neat to see that happen. I believe she was 15 when she was pregnant, so she also had the first baby in Crossroads. So you can kind of see what some of the barriers that kind of prevent people from being where God needs us to be. And those barriers get in our way all the time, because a lot of it is like they were saying, is that I just don't think I can do what I need to do. You know, when we started Freedom House about 25 years ago, one of the things that I did was I got the ministerial group together from the community, and so I thought that'd be a great way to kind of tell them what we're doing. Maybe they'd like to support us. And so hopefully we can remove some of the barriers from what prevented people from really being what God needed to be. So I was talking about the things we're doing with Freedom House. And the first response to that was, so you're trying to take these women out of a marriage that God had ordained? And I wasn't prepared for that. And then I said, well, pretty much, if you want them to live. And then they said, well, she made the bed, let her lay in it. And so then I began to realize that perhaps maybe the greatest barrier is the church that prevents people from getting to God. And so that's something I'm very proud of this particular congregation, because we stepped up and said, you know, we've got to do something. And they've done a lot of different things. And as long as there's blood in my veins and blood in the elders' veins, that we're no longer going to be the barrier that gets in people's way. The doors are going to be open. We're going to reach people. We're going to go out and find those who are in need, and we're going to help them become the person God needs them to be, so that they can turn around and be the person that God needs them to be. It starts right here. It starts with us. And so for all those folks who participated in this and helping people have safe places to live, as Bunny did, and now she's beginning the process of finding out her self-actualization and helping people, that's what we're here for. That's it. We're people of faith. That's what we do. Let us pray. We are thankful, God, for all that you provide for us, even those challenges of life where we're called to do certain things that we just don't know if we can do or not. We're thankful for the opportunities that you've given us, because it causes us to rely on your Spirit for strength and courage and insight and direction. It causes us to be strong within so that we can be able to reach out to those who say you can't touch them. Just like your son, who was told he could not touch those who were on the fringes of society, but he reached down and pulled them up and he healed them. That is who you call us to be, God. It doesn't get any more difficult than that. No more complicated than that. So we thank you for putting us in this position that we can be for others what you choose for them to be, and we can be a part of that process. Because it's not us that is doing it, it is you who is doing it through us. So thank you, and we're humbled that you would use us to be your servants. So guide us, this congregation, we pray, and this community, that we could all wake up together. In Christ's name.